Most onions don't go bad because they're old. They go bad because of how we store them. Hello everyone, I'm Nancy. For a long time, I used to think my onions spoiled because they weren't fresh or were of poor quality. But what really surprised me was realizing that the problem wasn't the onions at all. It was how I was storing them at home. In today's video, I want to share a few simple, practical changes that help me keep onions firm, dry, and fresh for months instead of just a few days. Stay with me, because one small adjustment can make a much bigger difference than you might expect. When it comes to storing onions at home, the biggest problems often come from habits we don't even realize we have. Many people bring onions home from the store and leave them right in the plastic bag. It looks neat and convenient, but in reality, this is the number one reason onions spoil so quickly. Plastic traps moisture. Even if the bag has a few small holes, it still creates a damp, enclosed environment. And moisture is the main reason onions break down so fast. In that humid space, mold can start forming in just a few days. You may notice dark spots on the outer skin, and when you pick up the onion, it feels soft instead of firm. The thin, papery skin of an onion is designed to stay dry and act as a natural protective layer, but only when air can freely circulate around it. When airflow is blocked, the skin absorbs moisture, loses its strength, and the onion slowly begins to rot from the outside in. That's why the very first thing you should do when you bring onions home is remove them from any plastic packaging right away. Another very common mistake is storing onions next to potatoes. Many kitchens do this because it seems convenient. But in reality, onions and potatoes are not good neighbors. Onions naturally release ethylene gas, which speeds up ripening and sprouting in nearby produce. At the same time, potatoes release a lot of moisture into the surrounding air. That moisture softens onions and encourages rot, while the ethylene gas causes potatoes to sprout much faster. When onions and potatoes are stored together, they create the perfect conditions for both to spoil. The solution, however, is very simple. Store them at least a few feet apart and in separate areas. With just these two small changes, you'll notice your onions staying firm, dry, and fresh for much longer. Once you've taken your onions out of plastic bags and moved them away from potatoes, the next step is choosing the right container. A well-ventilated basket is ideal for storing whole onions. Because the sides are open, air can circulate freely around each onion. This steady airflow keeps the outer skin dry, which prevents moisture buildup and slows down spoilage. When placing onions in a basket, try not to stack them too high. Giving each onion a bit of space reduces pressure and allows air to reach all sides evenly. If you don't have a basket, a paper bag is a great alternative. Paper absorbs moisture instead of trapping it like plastic does. For even better results, you can poke a few small holes in the bag. These holes act as tiny vents, allowing moisture to escape and fresh air to move inside. This simple trick can help keep onions dry and firm for many weeks. Where you store the onions is just as important as the container. Onions prefer a cool, dark place, such as a pantry, kitchen cabinet, or a cool basement. Light and heat encourage sprouting, so avoid storing onions near windows, ovens, or other heat-producing appliances. Ideally, onions should be stored at temperatures between 45 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 7 to 13 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, onions stay in a natural resting state, often described as sleeping, which helps prevent early sprouting. With just a few small changes, your onions can stay fresh, firm, and flavorful for months with very little effort. Another time-tested method for storing onions, passed down through generations, is hanging them in nylon stockings. It may sound old-fashioned, but this method is widely used because it works incredibly well. Start with a clean pair of nylon stockings and place one onion at the bottom. Tie a knot just above it to keep it in place. Then add another onion, tie another knot, and continue until you have a long string of onions, each one separated by its own knot, because the onions never touch each other. This method greatly reduces the risk of rot spreading. If one onion goes bad, it won't affect the others. What makes nylon stockings so effective is airflow. The fine mesh allows air to move freely around each onion from all sides. This constant circulation keeps the outer skin dry, helps prevent mold, and slows down sprouting. Once your onion string is ready, hang it in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place. A pantry wall, a basement beam, or even a cool closet works well. Just be sure to keep them away from direct sunlight and heat sources. Under these conditions, onions can stay dry, firm, and flavorful for a long time. Freezing onions is another very practical way to store them long term, especially if you like having ingredients ready to cook at any time. First, peel the onions and decide how you usually use them. If you often cook soups, sauces, or stir-fries, you can chop them finely. For sauces or quick cooking, you can even blend them into a smooth paste. The key is to prepare them in a way that fits your everyday cooking habits before freezing. Once the onions are chopped or blended, place them into freezer-safe bags or airtight containers. If you're using freezer bags, spread the onions into a thin, flat layer. Press out as much air as possible before sealing. Removing excess air is very important because it helps prevent freezer burn and keeps the flavor fresh. You can also divide the onions into small portions, so you only take out what you need each time. Lay the bags flat in the freezer until completely frozen. Once frozen, they can be stacked neatly to save space. When stored properly, frozen onions can keep their good quality for up to 6 months. It's important to know that frozen onions won't stay crisp once thawed. They will become soft, but their flavor remains strong. That makes them perfect for cooking. You can add frozen onions straight into a hot pan, pot, or soup without thawing. They work beautifully in stir-fries, stews, sauces, and gravies. Before we continue, please let me know where you're watching from. I always enjoy connecting with friends from different places. One very simple tip that many people overlook is using a natural moisture absorber near your onions. This method doesn't require any special tools, and chances are you already have everything you need at home. Start by choosing a cardboard box to store your onions. Cardboard is ideal because it allows airflow and doesn't trap moisture like plastic. Arrange the onions loosely so air can circulate between them. Then, wrap a spoonful of baking soda in a clean kitchen towel and gently place it among the onions. Baking soda is excellent at absorbing excess moisture from the surrounding air. This is important because moisture is the main reason onions become soft, moldy, or rot from the inside. When the air around onions stays dry, their thin outer skin remains crisp and protective, helping them stay fresh longer. Once everything is in place, loosely close the cardboard box. There's no need to seal it tightly, just enough to block light while still allowing airflow. Store the box in a dry, cool place, such as a storage room, pantry, or a shaded corner of the kitchen away from heat. Every few weeks, check the baking soda. If it feels damp or clumpy, simply replace it with a fresh batch. That's one last small tip I wanted to share with you. It may be simple and old-fashioned, but it's surprisingly effective. Try storing your onions using these methods along with me, and let me know how it works for you in the comments. I hope these simple tips help you reduce food waste, save money, and feel more confident in your kitchen. Take good care of yourself. Cook at your own pace and enjoy the small comforts of everyday meals. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today.